The PS5 was supposed to be the future of gaming, but instead it became a cautionary tale of hype, hope, and hardware that just couldn't live up to the storm that it created. When Sony announced the PS5 in 2020, gamers lost their minds. It wasn't just a console, it was a promise. A new era of speed, power, graphics so real that they looked like movies, and loading times so fast that you could barely even blink. Sony threw out buzzwords like ray tracing, 3D audio, and 8K support. It sounded like something from another dimension. The excitement was just through the roof, and it had every reason to be. But just as the launch was getting closer, the world changed. COVID-19 hit, factories shut down, shipping delays were everywhere. Sony had powerful new consoles ready to go, but the global supply chain was falling apart. Microchips, the brains of the PS5, became one of the most rare and valuable parts on Earth. Combine that with millions of gamers stuck at home looking for something to play, and you had the perfect storm. Within seconds of every PS5 drop, the systems vanished from online shelves. Now, not because everyone was lucky, but because scalpers used bots to grab them faster than any human hands ever could. They flipped them on eBay, StockX, Facebook Marketplace, asking thousands of dollars. For a system that cost $500 at launch, this wasn't even happening once or twice. It was everywhere. People who truly wanted to play that console couldn't even get their hands on one without paying double or triple. And some people gave in because either their kids wanted them for Christmas or they just wanted them personally, so they just paid up just to be a part of that moment. But here's where the cracks begin to show. Even those who managed to get a PS5 starting asking one simple question. Where are the games? Now at launch, Sony showed us beautiful trailers. Spider-Man Miles Morales, Demon's Souls remake, Sackboy's Big Adventure. Cool, right? But those were cross-platform with the PS4 or remakes of old classic. It wasn't until much later that we actually got a handful of PS5 exclusives, and even then, they were rare. By 2023, a lot of PlayStation fans were noticing a trend. Most of the new games were actually really just upgraded versions of PS3 and PS4 titles. The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, Ghost of Tsunami, Director's Cut, Uncharted Legacy of Thieves, even Grand Theft Auto 5 made another return, making it the only game to launch on 3 straight generations of PlayStation consoles. Sony was leaning heavily on nostalgia, and while some fans were happy to replay their favorites, others were asking, what did I just spend $500 on? I don't care about prettier versions of what I've already owned. And it's not like the PS5 was weak, that's not at all. In fact, under the hood, it was one of the most powerful consoles ever made. It had a custom AMD Zen 2 CPU with 8 cores, a GPU capable of 10 teraflops, 16GB of high-speed memory, and an SSD drive that was so fast, shit could load in under 2 seconds. Some games took advantage of that. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart showed players jumping between worlds with zero latency. Returo used haptics and fast reads to create truly unique gameplay loops. But those moments were few and far between. A lot of third-party games still had really long loading times. Some ran even worse on PS5 than expected. Frame drops, stuttering, and even crashes. Games like Forspoken, Gotham Knights, Callisto Protocol struggled to run smooth frame rates, even with all that horsepower, and in performance mode, you were promised 60 FPS but barely touched 40. And in quality mode, it looked better, but it played a lot worse. And then came the delays, and ton of them. COVID didn't just affect factories, it hurt development teams too. Remote work, health issues, and scheduling problems pushed titles back, months, even years. Big exclusives like God of War Reckoning and Horizon's Forbidden West came out, but they were also on PS4, and it made the next gen feel pretty less than next. By late 2022, players were calling the PS5 a remaster machine. Some joked that it was the best way to play games from the past, but not the future. The hype had started to fade, and while Xbox wasn't perfect either, it was starting to catch up. Game Pass was booming, Xbox was buying studios left and right. Meanwhile, Sony was stuck re-releasing games that they already won awards for years ago. Let's go back to the scalpers for a second, because they were part of a much bigger issue. Yeah, they're annoying, yeah, their prices were ridiculous, but the truth is, the stock issue really wasn't there as it seemed. Sony was shipping millions of units. In fact, by mid-2023, the PS5 had sold over 40 million units. The problem was, how were they sold? Sony's direct website couldn't keep up. Retailers like Walmart and Best Buy weren't using any kind of bot protection, and so it felt like it was impossible to get one, even though it wasn't a problem. By the time stock finally stabilized in 2024, interest had already started to cool. People weren't as desperate anymore. Some even skipped the PS5 entirely, waiting for the rumored PS5 Pro, and then boom, it dropped. In November 2024, Sony revealed the PS5 Pro, sleeker, faster, a GPU capable of up to 18 teraflops, faster RAM, ray tracing was better, and even had some AI-based upscale tech built in. Games looked sharper, ran smoother, Spider-Man 2 on PS5 looked and felt completely different. Digital Foundry and tech reviewers praised the new model, but fans? Some were frustrated and they asked, why didn't the PS5 already do this from the jump? And is my console already outdated? Even more confusing was that Sony released the PS5 Slim around the same time, making 3 versions on the same console in 5 years. That's more than any PlayStation before it. It made it hard for regular buyers to know what to get, and for early adapters, it felt like they got left behind. And now in 2025, we're already hearing whispers about the PS6 already. Only 5 years later after the PS5's launch, rumors are swirling, dev kits possibly going out, Sony's even hiring engineers for new hardware. If the PS6 is already coming out sooner than you think, it makes you wonder, what was the PS5 even supposed to be? A stopgate, a misstep, or a rough ride during one of the hardest times in modern history? Now look, the truth is the PS5 could have been one of the greatest consoles of all time. It had the power, the brand, the hardware, and had millions of gamers ready to believe in it. But a mix of global disasters, shady resellers, underwhelming first-party support, and an over-reliance on the past dragging it down, it doesn't mean it failed completely. It still sold tens of millions. It had some truly great games, and for some players, it definitely delivered hours of fun. But when you look at what it's supposed to be, and what it actually became, you can't help to feel like the PS5 didn't quite finish the level. It paused, it glitched, and it left us waiting for the next checkpoint. Maybe that next checkpoint is the PS6. So what do you think? Was the PS5 a powerful next-gen machine held back by bad luck and business decisions? Or was it just overhyped from the start?